Namaskar and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, show on India's national television channel Doordarshan about Indian foreign policy, India's international relations, India's major strategic partnerships, and how India is involved in making the world a better place. Viewers, in this episode, it's a special episode. We are looking at India's relationship with a very important country in the Indo-Pacific, a fellow developing country, a democracy, and a country with whom India is advancing cooperation quite rapidly. This is the Philippines. And to discuss India-Philippines relations and the broader regional outlook in the Indo-Pacific, I have a very distinguished guest with me in the studio. Let me introduce you to him. None other than the Secretary of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of the Philippines, Mr. Enrique Manalo.
Hello, good afternoon.
Mr. Manalo is Secretary of Foreign Affairs, which is the equivalent to External Affairs Minister, what we call in India. And he is a key member of the cabinet of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and a long-time diplomat who has served the Philippines with distinction. He was their permanent representative to the United Nations, ambassador to the United Kingdom, and to many other countries. Excellency, it's a great honor to have you here, sir.
Great honor to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Secretary Manalo, Philippines and India go back a long way. It's a traditional, friendly relationship with hardly any conflict of interest. And the kind of convergence that we are seeing now, both at the strategic level, at the socio-economic and developmental levels, it seems like the relationship is poised to go to a higher level. You've just met our External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, and have discussed at length many sectors in which we are going to advance the cooperation. So please tell our audiences, what is it that brings Philippines and India so close, and what is it that you are looking forward to in terms of advancing the relationship in particular sectors and areas?
Well, I think the basic or fundamental reason that the India and the Philippines have such a good relationship and are poised for even a better relationship is our commitment to some very basic ideals. That is the commitment to democracy, democratic values, good governance, and the importance of ensuring that we are committed to uplifting the well-being of our peoples. So these are the basic frameworks guiding our cooperation. And in fact, this morning I've just come back from a very productive meeting with the External Affairs Minister, and we have already identified quite a number of areas of cooperation which already exist, but which can be further enhanced and strengthened. And these include the areas such as defense cooperation, economic cooperation, cultural cooperation, people-to-people cooperation, cooperation not only at the bilateral level, but at the multilateral level, such as in the United Nations, where Philippines and India have traditionally been strong advocates of a strong United Nations, and also regional issues, especially in our own Indo-Pacific. So there have been quite a broad range of areas where we intend to further enhance our cooperation under the framework of our commitment to democratic values and democracy and good governance.
Absolutely. Now, Excellency, you've written in the Hindustan Times, a major newspaper in India, about the fact that India and the Philippines are, they have the shared heritage of being developing countries, legacy of coming out of colonial rule. And their South-South cooperation, you have been a proponent for that. And on that level, India has been involved in healthcare in the Philippines, supporting agricultural development, clean energy, food security. You've mentioned cyber security. There are a lot of areas which have emerged now, which actually is a classic case of South-South cooperation. So how much are you getting from India, and what are we getting from the Philippines in the process, and how do you see this developing country, developmental partnership going forward, sir?
Well, we have also, as you mentioned, a very strong developmental partnership, which dates back to our commitment to promoting South-South cooperation, especially in our participation in groupings such as the Non-Aligned Movement and the Group of 77, where for years, ever since we gained independence, we have been cooperating with each other, especially in terms of our efforts to promote self-determination and also decolonization. And stemming from there, our cooperation has grown to areas, as you mentioned, in the development field. And in fact, today we discussed also areas such as health cooperation, environmental cooperation, especially dealing with the adverse effects of climate change, and also areas such as tourism and people-to-people contacts and education. And so really quite a number of areas which are very much related to our overall South-South cooperation in building greater resilience among the countries of the South.
Excellency, you mentioned also the defense cooperation. Now, many in India were thrilled to hear that the Philippines was the first country to order the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile that's made in India, and that is seen by many as security experts as a a game changer for the region, because Prime Minister Narendra Modi has set a target and a goal for India to become a major exporter of weaponry to fellow developing countries. Now, on that front, we believe that it will enhance your deterrence capabilities and support your national security goals. So, apart from the BrahMos missile, there are lots of joint naval exercises that we are doing now, India and the Philippines, and also in the context of India-ASEAN. This 2023, we have had a joint exercise between India and all the 10 ASEAN countries, including the Philippine Navy. And that was a big success, and our presence in the West Philippine Sea and the South China Sea has also been welcomed by many players there, ASEAN members including your country. So please tell us what India is doing and what more we can do to support your security goals in the region, because I've read President Marcos Jr. saying that the region in which the Philippines is located is the most complicated geopolitical situation in the world today, with all the tensions and the rivalries. So how can India come in the Indian Ocean region, sir? We call ourselves a net security provider, but beyond IOR, into the Pacific, into the West Pacific where you are located, it is still work in progress. So what more can India do together with you and with the ASEAN as a whole to strengthen your security and your shared prosperity?
Well, I think India as a partner can do quite a lot, given India's reputation and its actually being a defense partner and also being a leader in defense in our region. We see so many opportunities, not only in terms of providing weapons or defense, enhancing our defense capability, but through, let's say, exercises, and not only through military exercises, but also through exchanges of information, best practices, etc., and learning to work together. I think this is also an important part of defense cooperation. And we believe India has much to offer, as you have mentioned, not only for the Philippines, but for the ASEAN region as a whole. And this is really aimed at promoting our own, for example, in the case of the Philippines, our own national security, our ability to promote our security. And in this respect, we think that defense cooperation would be a very important aspect of this. So as I said, this can range from weapons to actual exercises, as you mentioned, the ASEAN-India exercise, and also through exchange of military students, for example, and
training
academies, and also through exchange of best practices. I think this is a sustained and ongoing type of cooperation in defense, given the complexities, the geopolitical complexities of our region, the Indo-Pacific, and especially of our more immediate region, for example, on the South China Sea, etc. So I think the situation, the conditions are really there to promote greater defense cooperation.
Excellency, you have talked about maritime domain awareness as an important area, intelligence sharing, these sorts of things. And we've been following closely how the Philippines has also significantly enhanced its security ties with the traditional ally, the US, and also with Japan and Australia. There was talk in India about a new Quad, because the original Quad was India, Australia, Japan, and the US. But then there was Philippines, Australia, Japan, and the US, the defense ministers meeting together, and there was this talk about how the US allies, because India is not a formal ally of the US, as you know, but the rest of them, including the Philippines, are coming together to enhance interoperability and for deterrence. So on that front, you seem to be more proactive in the Marcos Jr. administration than before. to protect your core interests and to be more assertive about your national security. So, is that something you have been in the foreign service of the Philippines since 1979, I've read, and you have seen so many administrations and worked under them. But this president, President Marcos Jr., seems to have been much clearer in his vision about what needs to be done to secure your country. And your thoughts on that, sir, and where does India come in?
Well, I think the President Marcos Jr.'s vision is essentially to promote the national security, enhance the national security of the Philippines, whether it be through defense or through economic security, economic resilience. Those have been the primary priorities, for example, in his administration. And this is being done mainly through an independent foreign policy, which he has espoused. And what we are simply doing is seeking partnerships in our region to enhance and promote our national security, whether it be through defense or economic. And who better to turn to than our partners such as Japan, Australia, and of course India, our traditional partners in many ways. And I think this has also been partly influenced by the changing complexity, the geopolitical complexity of our region, which brings more to the fore the need really to partner with more countries in order to ensure that you're able to promote your own capabilities, defensive capabilities, as well as economic security. So this is really a reaction to the changing geopolitical circumstance. And I'd also have to say that not only through the man-made geopolitical circumstances, but even through environmental reasons, with climate change really a reality nowadays, and all the effects of that it's causing, the adverse effects, also forces nations to cooperate more with each other. And this is where I also think India, being certainly a very important country in our region, has much to offer. And that is why we're also reaching out to India, and I hope my visit here will help identify those many areas where we can enhance our cooperation in the light of the existing situation.
Absolutely. So we are adjusting to the changing circumstances and adapting to them, and that's why you see this assertiveness. Excellency, Philippines is a core member of the ASEAN, and over time we have seen the ASEAN has been trying to unify its position on various issues, and the Philippines has been a major force, a major player in ASEAN unity. And on these matters, India's approach, Act East policy, as you know, is based on ASEAN centrality, we call it. Our Indo-Pacific policy as a whole has ASEAN in the middle. And President Marcos Jr.'s administration, your government, you have been at the forefront of bringing ASEAN unity to the fore. So here, how do you see, given this complicated geopolitical situation where there is a so-called bipolar, confrontation between China and the US, ASEAN is there in the middle and probably being wooed by both sides, and the same goes with the Philippines. So how are you doing this difficult balancing act? A lot of countries in the region say that they don't want to choose one side or the other. They can, they want to eat the American cake and have the Chinese pie, something like that. So how have you been doing this, and where do you see players like India also supplementing your efforts, your search for security and survival in this divided region?
Well, first let me frame my reply by saying that in the words of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the Philippine independent foreign policy is based on the premise that we are friends to all. And it's on that basis that we reach out to all our partners and friends. Now, in terms of the role of ASEAN, I think the Philippines and all the ASEAN countries are very much committed to ASEAN centrality, which we believe really is a major feature of the regional security architecture. And it's something that should be strengthened, because ASEAN consists of 10 middle power countries who lie right in the heart of the Indo-Pacific region. So even by geography alone, we have an important role to play in ensuring that our region follows the ASEAN objectives, that is to promote a region of peace, stability, and development for our peoples. And that is the basic guiding light of ASEAN. And we certainly welcome the support of a number of countries in our region for ASEAN centrality, and India has also supported and has voiced its strong support for ASEAN centrality, where ASEAN could serve as the kind of meeting place for all the countries in the region, including the major powers, because we believe the Indo-Pacific region and our region should not be dominated by a single power. We should have a multipolar region, and I think ASEAN centrality serves as a kind of focal point to ensure, at least promote, that kind of approach to our region, because it's only through peace and development that we can really ensure the well-being of our peoples, which is the ultimate aim of any government.
Absolutely. Now, Excellency, President Marcos Jr. has clarified that enhanced American more bases in the Philippines and presence and all this is mainly for defensive purposes and not to target any country. But as you know, China has major objections to this, and they have cried foul about the Philippines-US enhanced defense cooperation agreement. There are also questions about India-Philippines defense cooperation and whether that may be seen as in somehow threatening Chinese security or their goals in the region. So as a relatively smaller power that has been facing pressure and violation of your exclusive economic zone and all these things, how do you propose to stand firm, and what can a partner like India, I mean already we have talked about many things we are doing together, but going into the future in terms of the presence in the region, in terms of joint operability, interoperability, and also deeper economic linkages, infrastructure. This is one area I believe you are also talking with India about infrastructure enhancement in both our countries with a special focus on Indo-Pacific region. So in this context, what more can we do to make the region more secure, and this is, I think, the challenge of our times. It's a big challenge of our times. There are no easy answers, but you are the esteemed minister for the Philippines, so I'm asking you.
Well, we have to find the answers, and the best way. Well, first let me begin by saying on our enhanced defense cooperation with the United States. That's really part of our existing visiting forces agreement. So it's really nothing that new. And that the additional sites which were in the news recently are exactly that. They're sites. They're not granting the United States any bases or creating new bases. And the use of the sites is governed by mutual agreement by both the Philippines and the United States in accordance with the agreement that we have. So we have always said that this is really part and parcel of our existing arrangements with the United States and are purely aimed at promoting Philippine defense capabilities. But more important, actually, is to provide a basis to deal with non-traditional security threats such as providing humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. So it's really aimed to promote our economic and national security, and not aimed at any country in the region or any group of countries. So it's purely on the basis of our national needs. We've always tried to make that point, and therefore should not be viewed in the prism of any kind of geopolitical rivalry or something aimed at another country. And that's why it's consistent with our efforts, for example, to reach out to India to enhance our defense. It's purely to improve our defense cooperation with India. It's a purely bilateral arrangement. And we both stand to benefit from it in many ways, both our countries. And since we see India as a major player in our region, who else should we not deal with but try and tap India's expertise, knowledge, and resources to see how they can also help us, and also to find ways where India can benefit from that cooperation.
Excellency, you mentioned that India and the Philippines, we have a shared international outlook, preference for multilateral solutions and for negotiated settlement for disputes and all that. Now, given the crisis scenarios that are going around, and these are not hypothetical, they are real. I mean, Taiwan is so close to Luzon Island in the Philippines. The likelihood of, Chinese invasion of Taiwan or a large-scale war involving U.S. alliance system and the Chinese in that region is, not just a, theoretical exercise. Many people are predicting it to happen. So in that kind of situation, how would a relatively smaller country like the Philippines wants to avoid war, wants multilateralism, wants diplomacy, wants negotiations, what can we and you and India and like-minded other countries in the developing world do to prevent this worst case scenario from happening? And what do you think, apart from joint bilaterally, how can we bring in more players? Should we create a forum for peace involving all our countries which share similar outlooks? And what can we do a big diplomatic initiative? I mean, the Ukraine war has already shown that if there is no prior diplomatic preparation, there wasn't much in Europe, and now they are facing a very, very dire situation. Could we, do some pre-planning to avert the worst case scenarios in the region?
Well, I think I could probably answer that first by saying the reason why India and the Philippines, for example, have very common approaches to situations of international peace and security is first our commitment to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. And I think amongst those important principles are the commitment or the need to prevent disputes from becoming open military conflicts. In other words, to try and seek the peaceful settlement of disputes. And there are many ways of doing this. And also to promote the adherence to international law and rules-based law. In other words, it's only through these approaches, that is through international law and rules-based law, that we can really try to promote, let's say, development, prosperity. So I think these principles need to be really put forth to all countries to see that to make all realize that this is the best way to ensure that our multilateral system functions. And it's this commitment to the rule of law which I think India and the Philippines share. And it's an idea which we should try and, let's say, gather countries to promote the importance, especially now, of the rule of law and the need for the peaceful settlement and resolution of disputes.
So normative, spreading the values of rule-abiding, conduct in international relations, very much so. Last, I want to bring you to the issue of our bilateral ties compared to India-Vietnam, compared to India-Indonesia, compared to India-Singapore. The Philippines, in terms of trade levels, in terms of people to people, is not up there yet. And we would like the Philippines, especially because it's a fellow democracy, and in ASEAN region, you are one of the few democracies in that region. So we would want to expand this relationship in a big way. We have a shared English language heritage as well due to colonial reasons. So what more can we do to make this, to bring this to a higher level so that, in 5 years' time, we say that within ASEAN, Philippines is in the top 3 partners of India, in all respects, including trade and people to people, and of course security.
Well, in fact, that was the nature of our talks this morning. And I think that, as I said, what's really essential is that we of course, we agree that we have our common adherence to democracy and democratic values, okay? And of course, the English language, as you said, I mean, these are the basic parameters. But the real challenge is how we can now, using this, promote or enhance our cooperation in these various areas. And I'm very optimistic after today's talks that we are now more than ever convinced, because of the general situation, etc., the need to really see how we can promote cooperation. In fact, we identified many areas. For example, in the economic areas such as agriculture, trade, infrastructure. I think there are lots of opportunities here. Also in terms of health and tourism and education and general people-to-people contacts. We have to really identify specific kinds of activities under this, and the fact that we have many now mechanisms which can discuss this and actually identify and agree on initiatives, both from government to government and from private to private sectors. And I think this is the way that we are proceeding, and I think what really came out today is really a strong commitment for India and the Philippines to really see how we can reach our potential as soon as we can. And I think we are determined to do that. And there's such a broad range of areas that we can do it. So we have lots of areas to pick and opportunities to take advantage of.
So, viewers, the Foreign Minister of the Philippines, Secretary of Foreign Affairs of the Philippines is saying that we have much in common, but a long way to go, and there are many interests, shared interests that we are pursuing, from economic development to security and people to people and cultural ties, tourism. Philippines is a beautiful country, and we would very much hope that Indians go as much to the Philippines as they go to Thailand, for example. And we would look to see the BrahMos being just the first step towards much greater enhanced security cooperation and many other areas. And I think the Philippines, in a way, was an undiscovered gem for our Act East policy, and now finally we seem to be attaining that. I want to thank Excellency Mr. Manalo for sparing valuable time, for coming to India, and for being such a champion for our bilateral relationships, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to speak today on your program.
So viewers, Philippines matters. Philippines is a very important country. It's a rising power. It's an emerging power. And India also, as an emerging power, will need to hold hands and take this relationship to the next level, so that both of us enjoy the fruits of shared prosperity and security. Thank you so much. Let's keep an eye on the Philippines as we look at the broader Act East policy. I'll see you again next time. Until then, take care.